been really nice you guys coming in this morning to make my room special, because even though it's a nice hospital room as far as hospital rooms go, it wasn't special without all your stuff in it.
When Gav decided he wanted to tell his story, was another thing that I just went, oh no, I can't handle this. I was like Mama Bear, just trying to keep everybody contained and safe and protected, and I didn't want any intrusion on my family and what we were going through.
Is it a bit scary having Dad in hospital?
Half on, half off.
Half on.
Because I know you're in here because you're going to get better, but I also miss you.
Yeah, thanks. I miss you too.
It was really hard, but Gav he was always big picture. I remember shaking my head going, yeah, of course, Gav, you're right. You know, it was the right thing to tell your story. It was right for Are You OK and for the greater community, but it was also right for us and the kids.
I remember that.
Throughout the journey, we could easily be completely justified in being pissed off, frustrated, despondent, dealing with all this bad news, and all of it would be justified, except it doesn't help you. It doesn't help you on the journey, and if the journey's all you've got, you want to make it a good one. Yeah, you're gonna go.
Where'd my phone go? Just into here.
Thanks, no worries.
Did you see his drawing for Dad?
It's fantastic.
The car was on the road.
Gavin Larkin, our founder, is never far away.
I think Dad would think that Are You OK Now is just incredible.
As Gavin said when he started Are You OK in 2009, a conversation can change a life.
Are You OK is an extension of Gavin, the person that he was. To think that he'd had this dream and it's come to fruition and in such a huge way is great.
I got into advertising in 1996. After a bit of a checkered sort of career, I was starting late. I was 27, and I was lucky enough to move quickly, and so advertising and marketing became my specialty.
He rose quickly because he deserved to. I mean, he was one of those standout guys. You could see from the moment he got into the rhythm of the business, he really picked it up quickly, and people gravitated to him.
Gav was the quintessential alpha male. He was a big guy and told big guy stories. And whenever he walked into the room, you know, people knew the big man had arrived, and he couldn't have really been swinging much higher in terms of having the beautiful house, the beautiful life, success in every way, shape or form to the outside observer.
I had taken the brand shop to top 4, you know, in the country. I had 3 beautiful kids. I had a wonderful wife who'd stuck by me through some pretty awful times when she had every right, you know, not to. And our marriage was the best it had been in 15 years of being together. Ooh, wow. And I should have been feeling on top of the world, and, you know, I felt empty, I felt black, and it really scared me.
They're very nice. Oh, they're very nice.
And I started to worry that I might do what my father did, which was take his own life.
Dad was a big fella with a really advanced intellect, very well regarded by his peers.
Well, Barry was a genius, a total enigma. I admired him. So we started in business and we just became friends, and that developed into a personal relationship, a strong one.
And he could be enormously generous and thoughtful, but he was a troubled individual.
He didn't share with anyone his mental illness. He tried to self-diagnose. Unfortunately, he didn't put enough faith, I think, in other people. Eventually, you know, he disconnected from my brothers and I when we were like 23. I'd made a couple of overtures to reconcile, and they were clearly, you know, thrown back in my face as not being wanted, so I was like, well, screw you.
He ended up being isolated and he took his life. And yeah, it was a great shame. We love him very much.
Oh, where's that kiss?
Gav was quite worried about the confusion that he had about why he was not feeling complete when the world tells him that he's got actually everything that he needs. I'd done some work with a self-improvement communications course, and he went and did it and got a lot out of it. He was still the big man, but he didn't need to put on the big man routine. He was quite able to say he wasn't certain, he was wrong, he's sorry.
I've gone through an experience recently which has just really humbled me and made me appreciate so much more all the things in my life that I've got. Part of that course is to develop a project that inspires you and has you extend yourself and be the person you want to be. Everybody in this family is just outrageously good. And that has a benefit to any community that you're involved with. I really am. And I chose suicide prevention. Thank you. And I can't wait for the next 40.
Gavin and I both realised that suicide prevention wasn't a very attractive, sexy subject, so we wanted to come up with a concept that was simple and effective and not too in your face.
And then we realised what we really want is mass. We want as many people as possible to take part and to be aware of it. So the thought of doing a day of action became really the imperative, and on the spot called it Are You OK Day. Today is the day that I need to think about someone other than myself who might be struggling, you know, and reach out and say, are you OK?
I wanted to talk you through the progression of the logo.
He had all these communication skills and all these contacts that he'd been used to selling products, and he went, actually, there's a far more powerful use for this. And, you know, when Gav took it on, there was no stopping him.
We were all a little bit sceptical about this. Who is this guy coming in from advertising, trying to sort of take over and run these things?
I'd like to invite you to be part of the Are You OK?
But then I had a long conversation with him, and I was left with no doubt that it was well worth supporting him to do this. He was going to do it anyway, I think.
It's almost double the road toll, and no one talks about it.
You got News Limited on side, all the networks on side, some or other econ, Hugh Jackman, you name it. Everyone got into this Are You OK Day.
Are You OK has one very simple message.
You know, could Are You OK, and that question being asked by the right person at the right time, have saved my father? I think absolutely it could have, but there was a time when it would have needed to be by, not towards the end.
And anything is possible for all of us. So, thank you. Thank you.
And so the message of Are You OK Day is stop a little problem from turning into a big one, because that's your best chance of avoiding the ultimate disaster.
Was a good idea bringing a white dressing gown to the farm.
Yeah.
It's hard to know exactly when Gavin started to become ill, but by the time he was diagnosed, he was at a very late stage and he didn't see the signs.
I started to get these, what I thought were sports injuries. Finally, the pain got so bad, my doctor ordered a full body scan, and that full body scan turned up bone cancer. 16th of February 2010, and my world just collapsed. It was like getting hit by a truck, because the fear is intense because you don't know what it is.
Gavin unfortunately had an aggressive type of lymphoma, and at presentation he also had stage 4 disease. We estimated his chance of a complete response to treatment to be around about 50%.
Gavin's father took his life, and yet Gavin was really fighting for his life. He was going to beat it. He had it in his mind. I've got to be around. I've got to make sure I live and I get through this and I survive.
Go Turkey.
In the background, while all this is going on, our 11-year-old son at the time, Gus, had been having some trouble with his eye.
Oh, you're the man. Let's see it.
We got an appointment with an ophthalmologist. Tragically, they said that Gus had an inoperable brain tumour, which was just, you know, devastating. Doesn't even do it justice.
Little Gussie Larkin off to school. Keeping it normal. Love that boy.
We were all reeling by this stage.
Love you, mate.
You just finished crying and pulling yourself together over Gavin, and then only 3 weeks later you get the news that this beautiful boy is ill too.
Give it to me, Buff.
For him and I, that moment that he was diagnosed became almost, you know, this special bond.
What about potato?
And not a bond that I would wish on anybody, and certainly wasn't doing cartwheels about, but a bond nonetheless that was going to be very important as we move forward.
All right, we're here for the operation Monday morning.
One of the big difficulties was, why would this happen? There was no reason for Gavin to develop lymphoma.
He's clearly not well because he can't stop singing the potato song.
And then for Gus as well to develop a significant brain tumour, again, for no apparent reason. I guess just bad luck.
Que sera.
Que sera. It is true, isn't it? You could say, why me? And then you go, well, why not me? You know, what is it about us that's so different or special? At the end of the day, life is random, and that's what makes it wonderful. And you just got to cop the good with the bad.
Calm down. Eat turkey.
Gus's treatment and journey was much more difficult. There was a lot of conjecture amongst the top doctors around what really Gus was suffering from.
Others had called it gliomatosis cerebri, which means the whole brain is affected, but I disputed that diagnosis. And so I proposed surgery, whereas others said, you know, you can't do surgery because it's involving the entire brain.
Here's our boy, thank goodness. All through it, giving his mum a high five.
I managed to get about 95% resection, but unfortunately not 100% resection.
Fantastic.
Essentially, he has been treated very aggressively for what we felt was a very aggressive tumour.
Good coordination, Buff. No problems, look at him.
I've done radiation and I'm having a year of chemo once every 6 weeks, and I'm on the end of my second round, so still got a while to go.
You all right, Gus, man? You look like the Dalai Lama.
Most people look at this situation and they think about what we have to do as parents to help Gus get through it, but you know, I think Gus has helped us get through it more than anything else.
Most people would be lucky to have one in their life. I'm 12 and I've already had 8. Yeah.
His bravery and that level of acceptance have been a real inspiration for his mum and me.
Yeah, don't be surprised if you pull me out and I'm asleep.
So my case for myself, you know, like, man up, ladybird, you know, it's like if your 12-year-old son can be such a stud about it and do it so peacefully and so graciously and like such a gentleman, then you can do it too.
Hi, girls.
I am so proud of Gus. You know, he has just been so accepting all the way through of his own sickness, and I feel like he is of Gavin's as well, and there's a bit of camaraderie there, and maybe it doesn't make him feel so alone.
Stay on the road, tough guy. Love you, Buff.
He's tough and brave, same thing basically. And we all love him. He's got so much support.
Love you too, buddy.
Most people just would have quit. They would have just cocooned and all too hard, it's all not fair. Gav did the complete opposite. He said, you know what, I've got energy left, I've got life left, and I'm going to continue to make a difference. And he stood up and he continued with Are You OK Day, right through to being in his hospital bed, being sick, and he's still on the phone directing traffic, making sure that it was going to be as good as it could possibly be.
He ironically would say to me, "Are you okay?" Well, I'm not. And, you know, almost with a smile, like, how ridiculous is that we started something and it's, you know, very ironic that I'm not okay.
22nd of September, 4 o'clock. Gav sleeping through his stem cells.
And we had no choice but to do what we call a stem cell transplant. And we had to squeeze this transplant in because Gavin had a very important day in his life that he wanted to get to, and that was the Are You OK Day. And the timing was very, very tight. But he got there. Sheer determination, I think.
So I've got 1,000 phone cards. Do we post somebody there, like one of the girls?
So I got out of hospital the day before and showed up, but, you know, I was wearing a yellow T-shirt and I think I was yellower than the T-shirt. It was pretty grim.
Coffee, give them a phone card as well, just to say...
You know, the reason I was there is that Are You OK Day is a lot more important than me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am no saint, you know. I have been and made all the great mistakes that human beings make, and I've been a prick to some people throughout my life, and, you know, I apologise wholeheartedly to all those people. You know who you are. So it's not about just being a saint and doing this wonderful thing. Making sure that it lived and breathed on its own, regardless of what was happening to me and what may happen to me, is very important.
Good boy, where's my cuddle?
So about a month after Are You OK Day, Gavin was booked to have his lymphoma reassessed.
Around 15s.
And unfortunately, it actually showed even more lymphomatous disease, and now in a number of areas.
Found out that he would have to have a bone marrow transplant, and that's where his brother Aya was able to help because he was a bone marrow match, which was great.
Big brother downstairs, how are they treating you?
I'm all hooked up now. They've been helping me for about a check-up.
I just feel like it's a new beginning today. I feel like this is the next step of the journey in a positive way.
Through all of this, Gav's wife, Marianne, has been remarkably strong and positive.
They're good kids, we're lucky.
People just can't believe how wonderful she's been for her boys.
Did a good job with them.
She's been just amazing.
So day plus 11 post the transplant.
The bone marrow transplant itself started really well. Got home, started to get my strength back.
So this is a big day, you know why?
It's step to your recovery.
That's right.
At the same time, I was starting to experience some real discomfort in my back. 14 weeks down the track, and, you know, I've gone from bad to worse.
Gavin started to redevelop the same bone pain that he'd had in the past, and it was pretty clear that the lymphoma had recurred despite his transplant.
A week ago today, they told me, you know, there's nothing more we can do for you, and, you know, now it's really a matter of putting you into palliative care, which treats your symptoms rather than looks for cure. And, you know, part of me was relieved because I felt like I'd fought so hard and I was so sick that there was some level of comfort that came with knowing, okay, the fight's done. It's been really hard on Marianne because I think we really both thought I would beat it. We've also got, again, so much on with Gus still being sick. The kids get now the finality. And it's very sad for them. Like, there were a lot of tears. And, you know, Josie said to me, but you told us he wouldn't kill you. And you know, at that point I said, oh, well, at that point the doctors didn't think it would, you know, but things change. And unfortunately that's where we've ended up. One of the implications of where my treatment's got to is I've had to step back from AUOK Day. That's been hard. It scares me letting go of it. It scares me because I want to see that it continues.
You know, of course you can't replace any individual entirely, but AUOK Day has got a lot of momentum behind it and a lot of people who really see its worth. So the wheels are turning to make sure that it's got some good leadership moving forward.
Hey, you two beautiful boys.
You know, there's a ton of things I'm not proud of in my life. I'm really proud of AUOK Day, and I know the kids are too. And, you know, I remember how proud I was of my father. It is something that they'll be proud of forever.
Gav, you know, he fought to make sure that he saw that very last Are You OK Day in September 2011.
I'm sitting at home and I've got the Twitter on and looking at Facebook and I've just been watching the commercial channels and they're running the ads and it's everywhere. So I'm, you know, very happy because
He was determined. He did a radio interview the very day of Are You OK Day as well, and he was so sick.
Are You OK Day was always something that I wanted to see live on because it is more important than me.
And then the following week after that is when he died.
G'day. Someone who's had a lifelong love affair with the last word. No surprise that I want to have it here.
It was very Gav to have such a kind of out-of-the-box, in-your-face, inspirational, emotional message there in the middle of this funeral.
Goodbye. Goodbye to all of you.
Just how much, you know, anguish Maz and the kids were feeling was really there for all of us to see.
2, 3. Love you, Gav.
Love you,
Bye, Gav.
Towards the end of 2012, Gus did get sick again. That was a really, really hard time because I knew Gus was going to get really sick and I didn't have Gav with me to navigate that. Gus was very accepting. He didn't want to talk about his sickness so much, which I love about him. And he lived like that till the very end, yeah. We went on a holiday about a year after Gus died. I remember being so upset on that holiday because there was families all around us and it was so obvious to me that we'd gone from 5 to 4 to 3 in such a short amount of time. It was so, I remember it being so confronting. You guys remember a lot from when you were little.
I liked the best how we chose photos when Gus and Dad weren't sick.
Yes.
I was very much like, why did it have to happen to us? But I think I just very much focused on the fact that it wasn't like they've left and that everything of them is gone. Like, there are so many other things that, like, in our life now are constant reminders of them. The ones that I love the most are of me and Gus in those ones. And he's wearing the Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah, that was in Laguna.
I remember that.
Actually, you've still got that shirt hanging in your wardrobe now, Van. That old shirt of Gus's, you know, the one with the Hawaiian palm trees and everything on it?
Yeah. It offers a bit of solace because we can hang on to them still. Remember that one at Nipper's van when you were on Dad's shoulders and he'd have to wear that big hat because he was scared of the sun with his treatment and stuff?
Dad was very brave, he was very strong-hearted.
Oh my God, you and Gus were in that little bath photo.
I think about Gus a lot. I do look a lot like him. Everyone always says that. I like it. I like to remember him. Like, every day I'd go into his bed and watch iPad and stuff.
Hi.
I think outsiders look at it and think, oh my God, if that happened to me, how would I get up every day and blah? And I do have feelings like that some days, that it is so hard. But we've been able to cope. And I would say cope pretty well, actually. Acceptance has probably been a big part of me being able to get through this. I don't ever say it's not fair.
And I remember when I was pregnant with Gus, so he was the first.
Being supported by the outside family and friends has really helped. We haven't sort of just bunkered down, the three of us, either. We've kept our world open.
Depression is a really hard thing to open up about and to let people see you go through. I was waking up every morning, going through my everyday routine, and all the while hurting silently. That's why it's so important you open up to others and you seriously try and start a proper conversation with someone to check in on them.
Are you okay? This has been a major source of comfort to Marianne and the kids.
But now, hopefully, by me sharing a part of myself with you, you may be able to share a part of yourself with someone else. Thank you.
This is the house that like lives and breathes Are You Okay? And it's incredible to like see the community that Are You Okay built around us.
The Larkins stay very involved in what we do. Josie often speaks on behalf of us. Maz is someone who comes in and gives us a hand from time to time. Gav's brother Aya is still on the board. How were your mates? How did they help you out through that?
They were really nice. It was mostly Gus's friends that helped me out and their little brothers.
And do they still keep in touch with you?
Yeah, heaps.
I mean, it's come a long way. The growth has been phenomenal. About 80% of Australians know about Are You Okay?
Thank you to your family for making all this possible. So it's pretty amazing. What an amazing tradition. I know.
Of those who know about us, 1 in 4 have participated in some kind of activity around Are You OK Day.
He's been integral to every single event.
I know,
you know, we always start with that.
Gav's never far away. You know, I often think, you know, what would Gav think about this? And I hope that he'd be happy with where we're going.
He'd be very happy. He would be very happy.
Yeah, we run.
You were in the epicentre of everything, and we kick off you, but.
When Gav started Are You OK, he had no idea what was down the track for us. So it's so strange to think that what he put in place was actually going to help his family when he died, and it has enormously.